for inviting, and Dr. Atanu for taking care of the travel and everything, and thanks to all of you who have attended this talk. So I'm speaking on bilingual and trilingual parallel language activation. So this is the field on which I work, and so I'm very glad to speak on the same area of my interest, my research interest. To give an example of parallel language activation, so in the earlier traditional view, there was a view that when we speak one language or another language, the language that we do not use, it automatically becomes deactivated or gets switched off. But in the recent days, especially in the 21st century, starting from 1999 till 2026, we have enormous amount of research that have investigated what happens to the multiple languages which are stored in our brain. So that's a very interesting area to investigate. Just to give an example of what is this parallel language activation, so as the word says, parallel, simultaneous. And before, in fact, Champala, yeah. So Champala and we were one of the first people to come here. I mean, reach here this morning. We were here to welcome Atanu and Indrane, our names themselves. So we were talking, and then Champala told me he is from Verona in Italy. And the moment he said he is from Verona, and the word that triggered in my mind was Veronica. So another character, something that comes. So the moment you hear one word, it triggers some kind of phonological trigger, and it activates another written lexicon in your mental lexicon. So this is how it happens. So this is a very common phenomena among the people who speak multiple languages. So South Asian context, India, Nepal, which are all multilingual countries, so it provides a fascinating area to investigate this research. So I am going to speak on both bilingual and trilingual parallel language activation. In fact, bilingual parallel language activation was already established. Well, I can claim trilingual activation started with my research. So here we go. Yeah. So why parallel language activation matters? So parallel language activation in bilinguals and trilinguals has revealed the potentials of human brain capacity for linguistic and cognitive processing. So our brain can store, organize, and retrieve multiple languages. The ability to that if you have more language, it becomes a handicap, was a belief before 1960s, but after that we have started changing. The ability to process multiple languages has repercussion on the cognitive abilities of human brain. Ability to switch between languages produces the ability to switch between the tasks. There are many papers on that. Multiple storage and processing of languages does not hamper previously learned mother tongue or first language. This has implication on multilingual education. In fact, those who believe, there is a very strong idea that we are pushing that if you give education in your mother tongue, people learn better and it has more cognitive, better cognitive implication. No. If you really do the research, even if you are teaching more languages, it does not really hamper first language. First language can still remain intact with more languages being added, and it is even more beneficial for your cognitive mechanism and cognitive processing. So multiple languages in the brain create, in fact I'm just citing myself here. So we did a study in Nepal in government schools where we compared, there was one Nepali medium school and English medium school, and we did flanker task and strip task and verbal forensic task. So we use both linguistic and cognitive tasks to measure whether instruction in first language or second language affects linguistic and cognitive processing. And you would expect that so we use both bilingual tasks. We gave them tasks in Nepali and also in English. So you would expect that children who were taught in Nepali would do better in first language, that is Nepali verbal fluency task, and the task administered in Nepali in flying colors 2. No, we found that children who were taught in English medium school, actually they performed even better. So the number of words that they made from the letters and the category that we gave them, they produced more words in Nepali than the children who were being taught in Nepali medium school. Even English medium children were producing more Nepali words. Of course, English words they would produce more automatically. So they were producing more English words, and also they were producing more Nepali words. So no effect. I mean, it did not create any problem, and they were doing better in cognitive tasks also. So the more we conduct such deep research, we really understand what actually happens in the internal mechanism. So multiple languages in the brain create novel and complex pathways and networks and help recover from neural strokes and neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's-induced dementia. Insights from the labs of Ellen Bialystok from Canada, Jubin Abutalabi from Italy, Subhana Alali from India, and Thomas Bach from UK. So these are the leading, and interestingly, Jubin Abutalabi, Subhana Alali, and Thomas Bach are neurologists. Ellen Bialystok is a psychologist. So who work on bilingualism, and they have actually scanned the brain and seen inside how it works. And they have even said the more language you know, the better, because it exercises the brain areas inside, and then it helps you recover or even delay the dementia in the old age and all that. So language actually is a therapy. So this is from Jabin Abutalabi's paper, where they show that if you do lifelong use of 2 or more languages, it enhances executive control. So you can see the different brain areas which are involved. It produces neural reserve, neural compensation, and all this exercise is like using multiple language for your brain is exactly like going to the gym and doing the deadlift, all the powerlifting, all the muscle that you build for your body in the gym. That is exactly what happens to the brain when you learn more languages. So it's a good news. So why should bilingualism and trilingualism matter to us? South Asian societies and communities like India and Nepal are predominantly multilinguals. It's a given model to us, unlike many predominantly monolingual Western societies. So it's already there, the research field, and easy for us. There is a growing interest in understanding non-weird societies, Henrik et al. So WEIRD, W-E-I-R-D, is an acronym for Western, educated, industrial, rich, democratic societies. So now 95% of all the psychological research published are worked in America, and they are mostly published in the journals either coming from America or the Western world. So there was a strong criticism that they don't represent the rest of the world. So there is a need to go to the rest of the world, non-Western, that's a non-weird. So there are many journals now. The chief editor of Psychological Sciences has said they would welcome research from the non-weird world, like we are non-weird countries. I mean, India, Nepal, so South Asia, so kind of thing. So that's why now there is a growing interest for the testing and trying and validating all the Western theory which are there. We can even invalidate. So South Asia provides a fertile ground to test, verify, validate, or even invalidate. For that matter, say for example, Patrick et al. 25. These are recent paper published in International Journal of Bilingualism, where there was a paper by Link and Kroll et al. 2009, where they said they showed that even if you move to, there are American students who had moved to Italy for 1 semester course, and they realized just 3 months of stay itself can restructure your first language. So it was their study. So I was interested, this was part of my PhD work, one chapter, and I was interested, does it really happen? And then I tested the Nepali students who were studying in Hyderabad. They were all staying inside, they were doing university all inside, so we conducted all 55 students. And we tested whether, because they were, first language was Nepali, they were living in India, where they were using all English inside the campus and class and everywhere. So whether living, forget about 3 months or 1 semester, they were living there for 4 years, whether that restructures their first language architecture. And we found it does not. So even living there in away from your country, where a different language is used, and still you can maintain. So this study, our study, provided counter evidence to the study which was already published. So we can actually do this kind of research where we can have, we can validate. I mean, it's not that we always have to go against what is already there. I mean, science has to be transparent, replicated, all that. So we can check whether they are valid or they are not valid. If they are not valid, whether we can provide counter evidence for what is not valid. So these are there, so we can test, verify, validate, or even invalidate Western theories and models of language and cognition, and advance our own. Compare, for example, Bialystok 2007 in Canada. So let me give a brief story about this. In 2007, Ellen Bialystok published a very remarkable study where she showed that bilinguals were able to delay dementia by 3.5 years. So it was in the modern world, it was a viral research, viral story. So everyone was very happy and all this. But then Ellen Bialystok was attacked on 2 grounds. So they said, oh, you researched on immigrant population. And immigrant population are by themselves hard working. They work under challenging conditions. So that's why their cognitive abilities are better. And they were all university people, those who have gone to university, they have all acquired higher education. So if you are university people, university educated, your brain is already better off. So it can be generalized. So she had this attack, this 2 main attacks on her finding. So in 2013, Subhana Arati and her colleagues, they published a study in neurology, Journal of Neurology, where they say, the title is this: lifelong practice of bilingualism delays the onset of dementia by 3.5 years, irrespective of immigration and education status. So it was a counter evidence to that, or to in fact it validated. So Subhana Arati did a research on the local rural women who would come to her memory clinic, and most of them were illiterate, many of them were local. So even then, if they were bilingual, their dementia was delayed. So it provided a counter evidence to the research that comes from Canada. So we provide this ground. So we have all this advantage of looking at multiple language now. So language and cognition studies in South Asia from psycholinguistic and cognitive science perspectives remain relatively unexplored and uninvestigated. So vast opportunities lie in unrelated capitals. That's why this should be of interest to us, the bilingual and trilingual. Let me just ask, how many of you here in the audience can speak only one language? Please raise your hand. Those of you who speak just one language, please raise your hand. Not a single hand. Two languages? Only 2 languages. Not more than 2. Just 2. No? Not even one hand. Those of you who know 3 languages? Only 3. 3. Only 3. Only 3. Look at this. Look at these hands. Couple of hands. Those who know only 3 languages. See. Those who know 4 languages. Look at those hands. Those who know 5 languages. I also raise my hand. I speak 5 languages. See, there is no monolingual here in this audience. There is no bilingual here, there is no pure bilingual here in this audience. Everyone is minimum trilingual. So that is our situation. That is our condition. So there is so much for us to explore and investigate. Okay, this is just a quick multiple language that we have in South Asia. It's in all from Afghanistan, Northeast India, so Nepal. So Nepal and India, we share a lot, especially Iberian and Dravidian, so the Tibetan languages and all that. So we have all this rich repertoire of language families on which we can work in any part. So now on bilingual parallel language activation. So there is a large body of research on bilingual parallel language activation. So I'll just review and tell this quickly, a few of them, the significant ones. The earliest study is Spivey and Marian, 1999, with 12 Russian English bilinguals using 60 Hz eye scan. The eye tracker was the first one to detect that they activate lexicon in 2 different languages. Eye scan, eye tracker, tracking the eye gaze, comparing Russian monolinguals and Russian English bilinguals, directing their gaze and the within and between language phonological distractors like marker versus marku, like Verona and Veronica kind of word they use. So they proposed a single common posting phonetic system that provides differential, parallel and automatic mapping to the 2 lexicons, perhaps with no language-specific intermediate phonetic representation. This is important. As if in our brain there is nothing like Hindi or English or Nepali or Assamese or Bengali or anything. I mean, they are all, the brain doesn't care what level you give to a particular language. It has its own mechanism of organizing the language based on the phonological similarity and semantic similarity and all this, the morphological structure and all of that. So somehow it has its own way of reading. So, and the next one was Marian and Spivey, extended the previous with Russian English bilinguals in within language, that is within the Russian itself, and between language Russian English, and simultaneous language activation using eye tracking, where they found the proportion of looks were higher on the pictures whose names shared phonological similarity with targets. They suggest that the magnitude of between language activation may be mediated by a number of factors like stimuli, language background and modes. By the way, you must be thinking, how do we measure this parallel language activation? What is it? How do you know that both the languages are being activated? So just wait for a while. I have a slide, separate slide, where I'll show you a trial sample. So if you wait till then, and I'll explain that exactly what happens, how we measure. So, in the following years until now, Marian and her group have been instrumental in expanding the field of parallel language activation and how it affects various cognitive and activity components. So Marian's group, Viorica Marian, and her group are the one who are actually focused mainly on that, and they are pushing the field from Northwestern University in US. Recently, so most of them, they work with eye tracking, because they give, you have this visual world paradigm in which they give 4 pictures, of which one picture is the target. There is a spoken word. The participant will be asked to look at the word that they hear, and then there will be 3 distractors. Of the 3 distractors, one might be phonologically similar to the target, others will be different, so they do that. And then where do they look? So usually they have been using that. But recently, mouse tracker has come up as a very effective tool that has proven to be even more effective than eye tracking. I'm conducting a workshop on mouse tracking on 10th. So many of you will have a chance, some of you are attending, will have a chance to figure out, we'll look at more detail how it works. So Sara Insara is the first one to do her PhD using mouse tracking. Now she's a professor in Kolkata University. I'm the second who used mouse tracking as a tool during the PhD part. So we published on this. So my main tool is mouse tracking itself. It is a very fine-grained, continuous way of measuring the internal process. So Sara and Benjamin in 2016 used mouse tracking, and to tease the different degrees of activation, because in 2003 when the parallel language activation was just starting, that they had talked about magnitude, but they could not tell how this magnitude is separated. So it was done through mouse tracking technique. So they re-investigated their paper, and then they tried to answer what actually happens in the parallel language activation by tracking the XY coordinates through the mouse tracking. So they use mouse tracking paradigm to tease out the different degrees of activation, as mentioned in Marion in slide 2003, and demonstrated superiority of mouse tracking over eye tracking, showing that difference in timing but not the magnitude of interference are at the root of differential effects within language and between languages. Within language interference emerges 80 milliseconds earlier than between language interference. So this 80 millisecond difference still could not be worked out through eye tracking. So we'll have a time later to complete up these two paradigms. Okay. Now trilingual activation. Trilingual parallel activation started with our work, my work actually, Pathak 2022 and Pathak and colleagues 2024. This was published. In fact, I have a story on this quickly if I can. It was during my PhD work that I did one part of I did it in Center for Neural and Cognitive Sciences in Hyderabad, and one part I did in Norwegian University of Science and Technology. I went as a lab exchange student, and in NTNU, so I discussed with my supervisor, Milad Bolchanova, that I would like to try trilingual there on Nepali. So there were Nepalis in Trondheim who had come from Nepal. They were studying in engineering, medical science, and different fields, who also had very good English and who had learned Norwegian later. So Nepali, English, Norwegian, trilingual. My supervisor was not happy because by that time nobody had done anything on this kind of thing. So he said, no, there is no theory, no model, don't be so adventurous. But then I wanted to push something, and then I did that. I collected data in Norway, and I came back to Hyderabad. Then I had to go back to my university. So it was I did through in the job PhD thing. I had to take leave from my university and went back to TU because my leave was over. And then I analyzed the data. When I analyzed, the pattern was different. The parallel language activation that you see in bilingualism was very different from the parallel language activation that you see in trilingualism. Because, for example, if you, let's say, kitab is a word, Hindi or Nepali, its equivalent book, and then kisan. So kitab and kisan has the initial phoneme onset similarity, but if I say patta, it doesn't share any phonological similarity. So the thing is, when you say kitab, give the spoken word kitab and ask say click on kitab, but at the same time you have the picture of a farmer which also activates the word kisan, then the trajectory deviates. So it takes a little longer to click directly because the phonological activation creates a kind of competition, and then there is a latency in the response. So it delays. So that delay itself is a mark of both the languages getting activated parallelly. But whereas you don't see that phenomena when you have just patta, because it's different. So, but in my case, with trilingual pattern, when there was kitab and kisan kind of thing, then wherever there was phonological sharing, the response was faster. It was just the opposite of what you have in bilingualism. But this happened when I compared Nepali and English lexicon. But when I compared Nepali and Norwegian, it was exactly like the way it happens only in bilingual pattern. So what has happened? And at that time, because my data was very different from what was published in the research, what Marian and all others have done, what even Mishra and his colleagues had published. So they were all in the same line. I mean, phonological competition creates a delay in the response. There isn't. But I had just opposite. The phonological competition actually sped up the response. So I could not write my paper. I could not build an argument. So I kept it aside. Then I tried to replicate that in Nepal. So I same design, Nepali, English, Sanskrit. Then I did that in Nepal. And when I did that, so because if I had a feeling either I have screwed up my research or I have hit upon something really, really important in the field. It could be God gifted thing. So when I did that with Nepali English Sanskrit, then same result that I had done in Norway got replicated. I saw the similar pattern. Only then I could write my paper and submit into bilingualism, language and cognition. There was severe review, nearly 2 years, and finally it got published. After we published, then only Mariam and her group, they published just 1 year later. And now after my paper, their lab have published 2 papers. And they have found similar result in the pattern. So it is very different. So the result that we found in our research also matches with other ones. So this actually opens a field to find out the pattern and the result that we derive. So that's an interesting point. So I put the slides here. So for example, for bilingual and this one for trilingual. So these are papers that were published. The first one in International Journal of Bilingualism, and this one was in Bilingualism, Language and Cognition. For example, in this one, like grey and woods would look similar, which is the word for drue in Norwegian. So you would not see competition. So what happens? We have blank screen, and then we have 2 pictures because we use only 2. One, in some trials, the name of the distractor will match with the target chronologically. In some, it will not match. So if the insight coming from parallel language activation, if there is a competition, the response will be delayed. Competition is when there is a similarity or selection. In bilingualism, we found the delay. In trilingualism, we did not find, which just found the response there. So here, I just put the plots. In fact, in bilingualism, the red one is completer and the blue one is distractor. Now, if you see here, I think I can. Yeah. So here you can see this red line here. This is faster. Where there is red is completer, it's this is in this case it's delayed. The computer is delayed. Whereas here you see this delay. This is also delayed here. In bilingualism, red one is on this side, right side. But here you see it's on this side, it's other side. This is faster. So where is L1 and L2? So the chronological competition, this response is faster. Here also is L1, L3 faster. But then here we see L3 and L1, Norwegian and Nepali, so it's just opposite. Similar. It's very similar to like bilingualism. So this was a pattern which are different. So we see this. This is just the beginning. So we do not know yet. I mean, if we do more research, maybe perhaps we'll have more novel kind of finding and research in there. And then what could be the mechanism that might be working inside the brain? So this is from Jibin Amitarabi's paper. So where there's a very famous paper called the adaptive control hypothesis, that bilinguals are good at adapting. So they have outlined 8 control mechanisms that could be resulting from the use of multiple languages. So they show all these different brain areas that may actually activate different language areas. So they have shown it in the brain. So it will be difficult to, I think, because of time limited. I don't know, like to elaborate on that. Just to show you that there are evidences where people have actually looked into the bilingual and multilingual activation in the brain and which part of the brain areas are activated. So I'm bringing down to conclusion. So conclusion feature implication. So there is already a large body of research literature in the bilingual processing mechanism, language processing mechanism in trilingual, multilinguals are just starting to emerge. So we are in the interesting times when we are beginning to understand the complex mechanism of language processing. The predominantly multilingual context in South Asia provides a fertile ground for multilingual researchers working in the interface of language, mind and society. So I'd like to thank my mentors. Professor Ramesh Mishra is my supervisor, and Professor Mila Rolchanova is my supervisor in Norway, Trondheim. And my colleagues who have been head of the department, and who actually helped me establish my lab. So in Professor Nakal's time, I started collaboration with the Greenwich University, which is published in Nature. And then in Bernard Precise time, my lab was officially established, and in Toronto present my friend and colleague. So we have expanded the lab thing. So I mean, of course, without their help, I could not even move. So I'm thankful to them. So these are my lab members, my students who are working in my lab. Mohan Guru is MPhil PhD student who is working. We are working collaborating with University of Zurich on a large language developing corpora on child language attention. Samita Rizal is my first student who did her master's thesis on the Nepali and English medium instruction that I just mentioned in the beginning. So she did that part. Samit Rimal is he is a computer science graduate and now doing MA Linguistics with me, works in my lab. So further wants to go into cognitive science part, training on that. So Arya Pathak, Kosak Pathak, both are my boys. So they are also part of my lab. So they also do a similar research. They are also already co-authored in the paper. So and then they are also independent researchers on their own. So they are also pushing the field. And of course, I'd like to thank the organizers, Jadavpur University, School of Language and Linguistics, Professor Indra Datta and Atanu Saha, who were there, and of course Samir also, and others, so which I don't know, I mean, because they were the one, and they were my first contact, so asking me to come and logistics and things like that. So thank you all very much. Do you have any questions, either now or later? Or?
Yeah, we will do the next later.
Okay. Yeah.